Welcome everyone. Hi guys. Welcome. So hopefully the recording is going and okay, let's not talk about pants. Welcome. Hopefully you guys are interested in learning about the War of the League of Cambrai, which has been long in the works, kind of, not really. I just had to push it back 3 times and so now we're here. But welcome guys. Hopefully you're interested in learning about this small-ish conflict which is a part of a larger conflict known as the Italian Wars. Can you pause? No. But hopefully you guys are interested in learning about this topic today, and I will try and do my best to try and give a decent summary of events and explain why everything happened. Whether or not I do a decent job about that, I guess we'll find out. Because this topic is very difficult to research, as I mentioned before. Because if you search Italian Wars in academia circles, or like through my university, for example, it just came up with World War II stuff. So it was a bit annoying having to sift through all of that to get to the good stuff that I wanted. Okay. I think we should all be good to go. Okay, yeah. Okay. Quick question, Professor. Wasn't this later in the Italian Wars? No, this is like right at the start. But I will be going into the beginning of the Italian Wars. So it's kind of like early-ish. It's early-ish. And then there's still like 20-ish years of, no, actually 30-ish years of conflict in the Italian Wars after the War of the League of Cambrai. Is this the city-state period? Yeah, kinda. Okay. Get my PowerPoint open, hopefully. Oh god, you can see my mouse. Okay. Boop. Hopefully the music isn't too distracting. I just realized it's like a funky beat. But yes, introductions. So if you're new to my streams, hi, my name is Cleo IT. I am a history professor. That's my real job, and I like talking about history on twitch.tv. And so today we are going to be doing a lecture on the War of the League of Cambrai, which is a smaller conflict as part of a larger conflict known as the Italian Wars, which we will be talking about in a decent amount of detail because it's important preamble to understanding why everything happens. And so yeah, the goals of today is to just sort of dissect this conflict and to understand what happened, why it happened, and the implications it had for, I guess, European history and Italian history. And why is it important? So in the grand scheme of things, it's not necessarily important on its own, but it did have broader implications for military conflict, as a lot of technological or military strategic changes occur during this conflict. And I will try and talk about them, but they're not the main focus of the lecture. Okay. So, like last time, it's important to get into the who, what, when, where, how. Sorry, I'm just hydrating. And so if you remember the Fourth Crusade lecture, if you remember we spent quite a lot of time talking about the who and the what and the where and the why. This time it is going to be a little bit different, because the what and the why are quite important to understanding. Presumably it's not the same Cambrai as the World War I tank battle. No, it's not. It's not World War I. Not exactly. Okay. So yes, very important. We've got to figure out the backstory, guys, as Booba Angels and Athena. Yes, lots of very good artwork comes out of this conflict. And you can probably tell that this is Venice here. So that's the Doge's palace right here. These are the wing lines of Venice. And that's a museum now. But yes, it's important to understand the events that happen prior to the War of illegal Cambrai, because otherwise it just seems like a conflict in two of itself, but it is not. It is part of a broader military conflict between... Oh, that's not the next slide. That's the slide afterwards. But yeah, it's somewhat complex. I've tried to simplify it so it's easy to understand, but not to the extent that, you know, we lose information. Can you show Artistic Boober on Twitch? Oh, shit. I guess we'll find out if I get bonked. I forgot about that. Is there an actual education exception? I would assume so, but it's Twitch, so I won't, oh, fuck. Okay, I might turn the music down just a smidge because it's quite funky and loud. It depends if we have any snitches. Oh, guys, no snitches, guys. No snitches. Okay, so introducing the Italian Wars, guys. So if you're not aware of what the Italian Wars are, it is, I apologize for the very boring slide that's about to appear because I forgot to get an image for it. The Italian Wars, also known as the Habsburg-Valois Wars, because it was primarily fought between the French and the Holy Roman Empire over control of Italy. And it also... oh no, the Habsburgs are involved. Sorry, guys. Sorry, they are playing a major part in this conflict. Yes, the Habsburgs and the French are at it again, guys. You're pretty sure it's allowed, but don't quote me on that. Yeah. Medici involved. So yes, as you might notice, it says Habsburg, Holy Roman Empire, and Spain. We'll be getting to that. We will be getting to that eventually. Must be a day ending in Y if the Habsburgs and French are fighting. Yes. Okay, so what is the origin of the Italian Wars? It is actually the Lombard Wars. Oh, is my roommate back? Oh, one sec. I might just mute. I'm just going to close the door one sec, so roommate doesn't dox me. Sorry for the interruptions. Okay. And hopefully the doctor, I guess, calls during one of the breaks. But I believe we've been... okay, cool. The recording does tell me how long it's been recording for. Okay, perfect. Oh, I'm a little too big, guys. I will have to scooch out the way of the slide. Where is VTube Studio? There we go. I'm falling off the stream, guys. So yes, the Lombard Wars is our origin, essentially. Now, please excuse the very silly looking map. It is a very simplified view of Italy during the time, and it's unfortunately trying to find a historical map that represents this is a lot harder, and so there's a lot of sort of like simplifications made by, I guess, hobbyist historians or whatnot that help with explaining this map. All you see is Rome. Yeah, it's just Rome right here. And the good thing is, though, that I can show you what you can hopefully see my mouse, so you can see what I'm pointing at. Okay. So the Lombard Wars from 1423 to 1454. Oh, I forgot to mention. Oh, okay, so I forgot to actually mention it. The War of the League of Cambrai starts in 1518 and ends in 1516. And so it's part of the larger Italian Wars, which is 1494 to 1559. For everyone who loves EU4, this is Europe's early game fun. Kinda. Back when the two popes and Venice was still more serene. Kinda? The other pope doesn't really... I don't think they're that important at this point. Anti-popes and whatnot. Wait, is the anti-pope done by this point? Okay, now I'm just curious and I'm gonna quickly take a squiz. I'm pretty sure the anti-popes... Is the south of Italy run by Norman dynasties? No. I don't think... I mean, we do have anti-popes, but they're not important in the grand scheme of the conflict. Actually, no, he's gone. Yeah, I was reading the date wrong. So during this, there is anti-popes, but they're not very important. At least from my research, they didn't come up during this, researching this part of the conflict. I could be wrong, but like I said, this one was kind of a pain to research, so... please do feel free to correct me if I'm missing anything that you guys know. Okay, back to my PowerPoint because I had something open. So yes, it is a series of conflicts between the Republic of Venice and the Duchy of Milan over hegemonic control over northern Italy. So obviously it is about this region here called Lombardy of northern Italy, which is primarily where the Duchy of Milan is. It's about here, and it stretches from I think this is like Parma. If you know your Italian geography, this is Parma, and it stretches all the way up to the mountains in the Alps, and it borders the Swiss Confederacy at the time. And so, if you're not aware, the Republic of Venice and the Duchy of Milan were not the best of friends. And so they were basically in conflict over this region here, revolving around the River Adda in northern Italy, in Lombardy, of course. And so Venice encroached on the territory of the Duchy of Milan and was successful in taking the regions surrounding Breviso and what's its name? Sorry, I'm going off the top of my head. Is it Treviso and Brescia? I think it's Treviso and Brescia. I think I combined the two of them together like an idiot. No, it's not Treviso. Treviso is north of oh yes, you were right. Someone said Bergamo. Yes, it's Bergamo and Brescia. So Venice took control of both Bergamo and Brescia, and I guess I can quickly crop this to show you where they are in relation to modern day Milan. Probably should have included this in the slide. I'll just hopefully this doesn't look whack. Okay, it kind of looks whack. But you can see Venice here. Oh God, why are you doing this? No, designer, go away. So you have Venice over here, and you have Milan over here. So they are very close, right next to each other. And so Venice, in the conflict of the Lombard Wars, expanded their terra firma. The terra firma is the Venetian word for the land in mainland Italy that Venice controlled, because Venice was previously a maritime, typically just a maritime empire. And so its territory expansion focused on down the coasts of the Adriatic and into sort of Greece and into the Aegean Sea. And so not necessarily land on mainland Italy. But yes, during the this time, Venice managed to expand its territory from just around the areas surrounding Venice, and expanded up through here into Verona and Padua, and or Padua first, then Verona, and then eventually came into conflict with the Duchy of Milan over Brescia and Bergamo. And as you can see, this is really, really close to the actual sort of territory of Milan proper. Well, I mean, it was Milanese territory, but as you can see, it's very close to the city of Milan itself. But yeah. Boop. Okay. And so the main thing that occurred from this conflict is that the economy of Lombardy was absolutely devastated. A constant warfare in the north of Italy absolutely ravaged the countryside, and it also weakened the power of Venice, because they were spending so much money and time fighting in north of Italy that a pesky little power over here that you can probably see just on the tip of this map, the Ottomans, you might be aware of them. The Ottomans rose to power, and during this time you have the Ottoman conflicts with Venice over control of the Aegean and Greece and sort of eastern, like the Balkan region. Never heard of them, must be an India empire. Yeah, they go to another school, guys. Yeah, the region is ravaged, and another consequence, not circumstance, is that the power in Italy is basically held by 5 major players. That is Venice, Milan, Florence, Naples, and the Papal States. So Naples is this bit down here. And there's the Papal States here, which you can see sort of sneaks like this. You have the Republic of Florence here, you have the Duchy of Milan here, and you have, of course, Venice here. Didn't Venice self-delete by abolishing their private contract industry at some point? I'm not sure. I would have to look that up, sorry. So yes, Venice acquired Verona and Padua in the early start of the 15th century, and then conquered the regions that we're talking about before, which was Brescia and Bergamo in 1406. But there was no single state that was able to control or assume hegemony over northern Italy. Venice was deleted by Napoleon, yes. At this point, Naples are descendants of Vikings? I don't think so, because I believe at this point the Kingdom of Naples is ruled by a Trastamara? I think. I would have to double check. I can very quickly pull up the Wikipedia page of Frederick. Yes. Okay, so it's the Trastamaras, predecessor Trastamaras. Ferdinand II was a House of Trastamara. Alfonso II was House of Trastamara. And yeah, House of Trastamara. Okay, so yeah, they're Trastamaras, not Normans. I think by this point the Norman sort of occupation of Naples had come to an end. And maybe they had just Italianized. So yeah, they're not Normans. Anything they're Spanish. Yeah, Normans were gone a lot earlier. Okay, back to PowerPoint. Okay, and so the conflict between Venice and the Duchy of Milan. Basically, this did involve a lot of the powers. So Florence got involved, Naples was involved, the Pope was involved. It wasn't just Venice and Milan fighting each other. Like, a lot of different powers in the region were involved in this conflict. But the principal leading participants of the war, if you will, were Venice and Milan. And so in 1454, we have the Peace of Lodi established, which ends the conflict and establishes a balance of power between the 5 aforementioned states, which was referred to as the Italic League. And whilst there was necessarily peace, there were still conflicts. So there was a war over the Duchy of Ferrara, which is called the Salt Wars. So yeah, it was a time of relative peace, but there wasn't complete peace. King of Naples was Rene. Yes, Valois Anjou. I'm sorry, it's French, so I'm bad at pronouncing French. Okay, so whilst we didn't necessarily have peace, I have called this next slide Breaking the Peace. And so here's a more sort of rigorous, traditional looking map, but I believe this map was made a lot later. Ferrara is still feeling salty about it. Well, you can kind of see him over here. This is Ferrara over here. So yes, this is a map of Italy, I believe around the time of the War of the League of Cambrai. And so what triggers the end of the Peace of Lodi and the end of the Italic League that then leads into the War of the League of Cambrai? It is the death of Lorenzo de' Medici, who was as you can probably tell, he was the ruler of the Republic of Florence from 1469 to 1492. He was also known as Lorenzo the Magnificent, and it was mostly his effort that was the reason that that the Italic League was able to maintain the balance of power and relative peace was kept on the Italian peninsula. And yes, that painting does seem to give him a bit of a lazy eye. It's a bit silly. But also, yes, during his reign, you saw the golden age of Florence during the Renaissance. You see all the sort of fabulous artworks that come out of I think it's called the mature period of the Renaissance or something. I didn't focus too much on the cultural development of Florence when I was researching this, but yeah. Look at his nose. He's got a decent schnoz, if you will. But yes, he was responsible for the sort of golden age of Florence, and they were very prosperous. And the whole region of Italy did prosper during the sort of recovery from the Lombard Wars, and the 40 years of peace allowed the region to recover from the constant warfare and the destruction that had occurred during the conflict. So he dies. And what happens? Why? It's those gosh darn Milanese. So Ludovico Sforza of Milan was Duke of Milan from 1494 to 1499. So as you can probably tell, there is a bit of a gap between the death of Lorenzo and Ludovico from rising to power. I'm going to sneeze. Sorry, I muted because that was a really loud sneeze. So Ludovico was not actually originally going to be the man that inherits the Duchy of Milan. He was actually fourth in line. He was the fourth son. And very strangely that all of the people in front of him in the line of succession died, which might come across as suspicious, guys. And so I can't confirm for certain whether or not he had a hand in it, but it's very strange that his three brothers all die, including the father of Gian Galeazzo Sforza, who is the heir to the Duchy of Milan. And so I think Gian ascends to the dukedom of Milan at the age of 8, which is obviously too young to rule. So his uncle Ludovico acts as regent. And so he serves as regent from the 1480 to 1494 for his nephew. And it's very strange. Gian also dies in 1494 without an heir. Oh no, he does die with an heir. But Ludovico is picked as the new duke afterwards, after his death. Real politicking errors with this guy. Yeah, kinda. But most importantly is that Gian Galeazzo was married to Isabella of Naples, who was the princess of the Kingdom of Naples. And basically, in a power play as regent of Milan, he basically, after the marriage of Gian and Isabella, he basically isolates them from the court of Milan and sends them off to a relatively nice political prison, essentially. And they basically have no control over the Duchy of Milan. And of course, Isabella's father, when he finds out about this, is not exactly the most pleased about this conflict, about this development. And her father is Alfonso II of Naples, and he actually has a claim over the Duchy of Milan. And so Ludovico realizes that was he tripped out that could excuse his behavior? A lot of the artwork depicts him with this sort of hairstyle, so presumably it is his actual hairstyle. He stole Shrek's clothes. Also, FK Laurie and Warlock, thank you very much for the follow, by the way, guys. Sorry, I should probably wait until after the during the breaks to read off the notifications. He's wearing a shitty beanie. No, that's his hair. That is his hair. And so, yes, he is basically in a bit of a bind because the person that he's holding political prisoner and mistreating quite roughly. To basically summarize the events of Gian Galezio's and Isabella's time in Milan, they're basically just marginalized and kept off to the side and have no control or power in Milan. Ludovico has basically seized control of the duchy and basically mistreats them. And so Isabella contacts their father and says, "Dad, help. They're mistreating me." Which, of course, is a threat to Ludovico, as Alfonso has a claim on the Duchy of Milan, and so if he so desires, could use it as a pretext to attack and liberate his daughter and overthrow Ludovico in Milan. And eventually, Isabella's husband dies in 1494, and Ludovico becomes Duke of Milan proper, not just regent. And so, yes, we get to the point that Ludovico, fearing his position may be compromised by the Kingdom of Naples, encourages Charles VIII of France to use his claim on the Neapolitan throne, which they got through Duke René of Valois-Anjou, who was a former King of Naples. And so he has a familial claim through the Duke of René. Is it King René, rather? And so Ludovico strongly encourages Charles to attack Naples, and in hoping that the Italian League will not approve of any conflict. King of Naples, Duke of Anjou. Yes. Okay, thank you. And so Ludovico's sort of power play here is that he will encourage Charles to attack and let Charles get free access through to Naples. He overthrows Naples, and then on the way back, the alliance of the Italian League will stop Charles and basically, he won't have to worry about Charles's own claims over Milan, because he also has a claim on Milan. And so, yes, Charles is very successful in his conquest of Naples. He ousts Alfonso and gains control of the kingdom himself. And then as Charles is marching back up through the Italian peninsula back to France, the alliance of the League of Venice is formed to help stop Charles from conquering more territory in Italy / to liberate their former ally that has now been destroyed. Well, not destroyed, but sort of forced into the French kingdom. And so he also, basically he switches sides. So he says, "Charles, sorry, I can't let you do that. Swap sides, allies the Habsburgs, specifically Maximilian I of the Holy Roman Empire, and joins the Anti-French League of Venice." So this is the sort of very important point of this war. So we've already got diplomatic fuckery happening, unfortunately, for our Italian states. I wonder if this decision comes back to bite his ass later. Why, yes. I mean, almost instantly it comes back to bite his ass. Oh, I forgot to... Wait. I don't know why it's got the squiggle. I'm sorry, guys. So unprofessional that I've got the squiggles. So I'm not using the PowerPoint, display mode, because that's just kind of, weird. I'm just using the one that I can, just the editable one. Somehow I knew I never heard of this conflict before. Why, yes. unfortunately, it doesn't go very well for Ludovico. He doesn't have the most success, let's say. So yes, Charles VIII retreats from Italy after the Battle of Fornovo, in which the League of Venice, which is the aforementioned League of Italian States, was successful in sort of, I don't know if it was a defeat or it was a sort of inconclusive, but Charles takes that as a sign to retreat. Let me double check that. Battle of Fornovo. So yeah, basically, after Charles is acclaimed King of Naples, a lot of the Italian states band together to try and stop that, because that's not good. They don't want France in charge of Italy. So importantly, as you can probably tell, this battle actually happens in 1494. And so this conflict here is the start of, sorry about that noise. This conflict is the start of the Italian Wars proper. So if you remember the slide here where it says 1494. So yes, this conflict of Charles attacking Naples is the start of the Italian Wars. Oh, I can get rid of this. Oh no, I'll keep it up just in case. Oh yeah, okay. So the French actually do, hello Cranky Locket, welcome. So the French do actually end up winning this battle. I just had to double check. And he's able to successfully sort of march out of Italy because he just wants to go home. Like he's done his objective. He's conquered Naples. He just wants to, and he's left a garrison to rule Naples in his absence. Was Charles before or after Maximilian? Charles VIII was at the time of Maximilian, I believe. Wait, now you're making me doubt it. Hang on. Oh yes, it's before, sorry. Not Charles VIII, yes. So Maximilian was not on the throne at this time. Also, if you want to read an absolute essay, when I was looking up Maximilian I of the Holy Roman Empire, is his Wikipedia article is stacked. It is stacked. There's quite a lot going on. I imagine he's quite an important figure. But yes, he's Maximilian was Charles V's grandfather. Oh, okay. Okay. Right, you're talking about different monarchs. Sorry, you guys are getting me confused. Silly. Okay, so he's not actually on the scene just yet. Oh, no. He is technically, yes. He is, yeah, because he's his reign as King of the Romans starts in 1486. You guys are getting me confused now, and my notes are starting to not make sense. How much more powerful was the national army compared to a feudal army during the 14th and 15th centuries? I will try and answer that at the end. But this is the time of kingdoms having standing armies rather than feudal armies. As well as the rise of, like, the serious incline of the use of mercenaries in conflicts to supplement armies. Like, most of these battles are fought with some sort of contingency of mercenary force. Especially with the Venetians, for example. Yeah, condottieri. Do you think Maximilian answered when called Max? Probably not. Anyway, okay, got my notes back up. So yes, Charles retreats through Italy after winning the Battle of Fornovo. And so Louis d'Orléans cousin of the king, okay, I don't need to edit it, in an attempt to sort of open up another front in Italy, attacks and occupies the city of Novara, which is in the Duchy of Milan, which, as you can probably tell, the Milanese did not appreciate. And also because the French had a claim on Milan. Right, I'm burping. Oh gosh, sorry. So yes, the French. So Louis d'Orléans, using his force, successfully takes Novara in 1495, or 1494/1495, and is basically trying to make a play for the French claim of Milan, because they do have their claim through. I think it is again a situation of Charles's father's historical claim to the Duchy of Milan. Someone please correct me about that in case I'm wrong, because I didn't actually look into it because I'm bad at being a researcher. I got to make a living somehow as a merc. At least there's always business. Yes, there was always business in this time of year. This time the history. So yes, Novara is taken, and very quickly after, the Milanese forces and the Venetian forces, I think, surround the city. And obviously, Sforza, Ludovico, does not want to attack his own city with cannons because he doesn't want to destroy it. Do you think we'll know enough to correct you? I don't know. I'm not... Okay, so I know I've talked about pop history and hobby historians in the past, but you guys will probably have more knowledge on topics, like these sorts of topics. Like, I know for certain there are people in my audience who know a lot more about military history than I do, because that's not my area of expertise. Sorry, I was just hydrating. Can't imagine not wanting to destroy your city. Yeah. So instead of attacking with cannons and sieging the city in a more sort of traditional way at that point, because at this point cannons had been used extensively throughout sort of the 15th century for sieges on... Oh, I guess siege. I was about to say sieges on cities, but sieges in general. Yeah. So instead of attacking, they cut off the water supplies, burn the lands around the city to kill off any crops and food that the French soldiers could use, and also make sure that no one can leave or enter. And eventually, I believe Ludovico and or the leader of the Venetian force, and who was I think the Duke of... or the Marquis of Mantua, who was a legendary soldier, essentially. Basically the leader of the Venetian / League of Venice and Charles VIII have peace deals, and this peace deal eventually results in Louis abandoning his occupation of Novara and retreats home back to France, at the cost of losing quite a few of his soldiers. I believe 2,000 of his soldiers die during the occupation of Novara. And so yes, this is Louis d'Orléans. He will be important very soon. So remember Louis d'Orléans and his personal vendetta against Milan. So yes, we have peace. So this is Peace of Versailles. And so we have the end of the conflict. I think this is in... Let me double check. Guys, I didn't put the date down. One sec. Oh, sorry, that's me. I'm just trying to find it. Oh, okay, it's not in this. Fuck. Okay. Peace of us. It was I cannot find it. Oh, there we go. I think it is. Yeah, okay. I think it's 1495. Yeah, okay. It is 1495. Let me just quickly edit that. Sorry, guys. Oh, that's not PowerPoint. There we go. Just add that in. There we go. Sorry. It's like you're actually in class. You're confusing it with the piece of the slide. No. Sorry. I just want to make sure that I get all the dates right. Okay. So, the Peace of Versailles is I guess I'm struggling for the right words for this. Sorry. Peace is made with the Peace of Versailles. Italians and French stop fighting, and the Kingdom of Naples is still at this point occupied by the French, but not for very long. So Ferdinand II of Naples, who is the son of the aforementioned Alfonso II. So he's the son of, hang on, I think I should probably have mentioned this. I'm so sorry, I've missed these dates. Ferdinand II. Naples. There he is. Okay, so you can probably tell, guys, he doesn't rule for very long. Where's my PowerPoint? There you go. In 95 to 1496. There we go. If this was my teacher, maybe I would have bothered to pay attention in history class instead of an ugly geezer. Aw, thanks, I guess. So yes, Ferdinand II takes back Naples on behalf of his father and becomes the new king of Naples. The French are pretty easily handled with, because I think the garrison that was left in Naples was only a few thousand, and so the Neapolitan army was very successful, you know, a much bigger force, and was able to overthrow the French. And so, yes, the peace deal between Ludovico and Charles was not seen. Oh, okay, right. Okay, I got my timelines mixed up. So the peace deal was between Ludovico and Charles VIII. And so Ludovico's allies, the Habsburgs in the Holy Roman Empire and the Venetians, did not see this as a favorable deal. If you get any military questions, give me a shout and I'll try chiming in. Okay, thank you. So yes, this is why you should treat your allies correctly, guys. You shouldn't betray your allies. Because yes, Ludovico essentially gets his peace, but at the cost of his alliance with the Venetians and the Holy Roman Empire. And the relationship between Milan and its allies deteriorates. And so Milan soon finds itself facing a new invasion from France. From I think it's 1496. No, 1499 is eventually when it happens. So they only have a few years of peace before they have to fear the eventual attack of the French again. And so yes, very importantly, is that during this conflict, there was a political marriage between Maximilian I's son, Philip of Joanna, to Joanna, daughter of Ferdinand II of Aragon, who is also daughter of Ferdinand II of Aragon and Isabella of Castile. And whilst that marriage isn't necessarily important, their son, you may know his name. His name was Charles V. And so he becomes one of the most powerful men in the world, essentially, as he becomes the ruler of Spain, the Holy Roman Empire, and Burgundy. He was the extremely inbred one. Yes. No, oh, was he? He does get depicted with a big chin. So, anyway. But enough of Charles V. No. Charles V isn't the inbred one. It's not so much of Burgundy. The Netherlands, I guess. More the Netherlands than Burgundy. I forget. Anyway, so yes, next slide. Also, I just realized I have been recording for 50 minutes, so at the hour mark, yeah, the Low Countries, I should say. Not necessarily the Netherlands, because there was no unified Netherlands at that point. That'd be a lovely epithet. Charles the Inbred. So yes, Charles the Eighth of France, I should say, dies in 1496, and guess who succeeds him, guys? Why, it's that aforementioned Louis d'Orléans, cousin of the king. He becomes the new ruler of France. And so yes, he succeeds him as king of France. And so what does Louis the 12th do? So Louis the 12th's main objective is to attack Milan, because after his personal defeat at the siege of Novara, he wants nothing more than to get some revenge on those pesky Milanese bastards. So yes, in 1498, what does he do? He starts shoring up his borders and making sure that he does not have to worry with any attacks from other parts of his kingdom. So in 1498, he renews the Peace of Etablens. I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher that, with England, which was originally made in 1492, and it secures his border from any potential threat of the English invading through Calais. He also signs the Treaty of Marcoussis with Ferdinand II of Aragon, which by this point is it says Aragon, but it's important to note by this point, this is the political union of Aragon and Castile, the crowns of Aragon and Castile. So you do have the unified Spain, even though technically, like, the unification of Spain is technically only officially recognized in the 1700s, the early 1700s. It's important to remember that when I'm talking about Aragon here, I'm talking about Spain, because it's both Aragon and Castiles, and that's the Kingdom of Spain, essentially. So yes, the outstanding territory disputes are left unresolved, but they sign a non-aggression pact / agreement. So essentially his southern border is also secured, and he doesn't have to worry about those pesky Spaniards from attacking him from the south. And then also in 1499, Louis XII signs in secret with the Republic of Venice the Treaty of Blois. I'm very sorry if I butcher that, guys. And they decide amongst themselves secretly to partition the Duchy of Milan. And so, Treaty of Blob. I don't know how to. I should probably. I'll look up how to pronounce it. It's French, guys. Oh God, not this one. Blois. It's apparently Blois. Okay. I'll try and remember that. Blois. Is the music still going? Okay, yeah, it is. Okay. So after this slide, I'll take a little break just for a water break and to go to the toilet. Just a heads up. Okay, so you have Louis XII and Venice basically scheming to partition Milan between themselves, because obviously the Venetians want to expand their territory in... Sorry, I'm going to cough again. In eastern Lombardy with the conquest of Cremona. And, of course, the French want the Duchy of Milan for themselves because they have the claim for it. And so, in exchange for gaining Cremona and the lands east of the bank of the river Adda, Venice would pay in part for Louis' expenses and provide soldiers. I believe they provided, I think, 8,000 soldiers in total towards the campaign. And also, Venice would promise not to interfere with the French's plans to capture Genoa as well, because France also had claims over Genoa as well. Which, if you don't know where Genoa is, it's basically south-ish of Milan and is on the coastline. And also is sort of a political rival, Republican rival of Venice during this time. And yes, so Louis also signs agreements with the Swiss to make sure that the Swiss won't potentially side with Maximilian, and also that they would protect, the French would protect the Swiss if Maximilian does invade them, and also gets a deal with the Duke of Savoy, asking for safe passage through the Duchy of Savoy. Because if you don't know, if we go back to this map, you can see it here. The Duchy of Savoy is actually in between France and Milan. So to get through to Milan, France has to march through the Duchy of Savoy to get to Milan. So it's very important that he can do so without impunity through Savoy. And also here's where Genoa is, basically. Okay. Yeah, okay. So after this, I'll just take a quick break to refresh myself. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them now. Take a 5-minute break. If I can remember where that is. Is this it? Okay. So I'll just take a quick break, guys, and then we'll get back to it. I have a little snack here that I might munch on in the break time. You're pretty sure the lack of hegemon in northern Italy at the time was economically beneficial for the region? Yeah. Because each regional power was able to develop their own economy then. It was a time of very, a great wealth. So, you know, Milan, Venice, Florence, they all grew very, very wealthy. Eagles and Chiefs are tied at 35. Good for them. Also, yes, for people who I guess are maybe watching the recording, this is being recorded on the same time as the Super Bowl. How common was secret treaties like that in history? I don't know if I can give you a definitive answer, but I want to say they were quite common. Like, having these secret agreements definitely helped. What makes the bowl super? No idea. America. So yeah, a lot of these regional powers were able to, as mentioned in the Peace of Lodi slide, it was 40 years of essential relative peace, and so they were able to prosper quite well financially and culturally as well. So it's during this time that you have a lot of like sort of arts and sort of grand sort of projects get sponsored by the states, especially in Florence, and Venice as well. Imagine how many chicken nuggets you put in the Super Bowl. Oh gosh. The bowl is super because you can skip it for a history lecture from a 2D waifu hack. Thank you. How's it been so far, guys? Please, I do value feedback about this sort of presentation. I hope it's interesting and not too sort of waffly. Hopefully, it makes sense so far. Because technically, we haven't actually started the War of the League of Cambrai yet. We're still in the preamble. You're enjoying it? Good. Okay. Be confident in your material. Thank you. I tried to, but this was a bit of a hassle to research. Okay, I'm just gonna go grab some water and then I'll be right back and then I'll get started again. The claim by friends is represented in the EU4 event where they get the claims on all of Naples. Yes. If you want to be, I guess, specific, it should technically be a personal union, but because technically the kingdom of Naples was basically just he overthrew the ruler and left a French garrison, but he was technically supposed to be the king of Naples. Personal union is that the king of both places. Yeah, that's a very basic way of looking at it. Okay, I'll just go get some water, guys. Be right back. I was muted. Sorry. Similar presentation, military history topics coming over in Discord. Potentially. Potentially. If I have time to do that. Like, already this research was quite a lot to get through, so I don't know if I can add more. Add more sort of like time consuming sort of stuff like that. I'm trying not to overload my own schedule too much, but it does make it does get a bit overwhelming sometimes. But I enjoy streaming to you guys. Okay. Okay, we'll be getting back to the presentation now. Okay, so we'll be back from the break now. By the way, is the music all good? Hopefully it's still relatively quiet in the background. Okay. Moving on. Okay, so we eventually arrive at... so Charles has done... not Charles dies. Just to recap, Charles dies in 1498. And Louis the 12th takes the throne of France. Or inherits the throne of France, rather. And basically shores up all of his borders to make sure that he won't get attacked. And he can go attack and campaign in Italy without fear of his kingdom being invaded, essentially. Yes, we enter the Second Italian War. So we have, as you can probably tell, the Italian Wars have been going on for, at this point, about 5 years. And also, it is important to note that the Italian Wars, although it's called the Italian Wars, it's a collection of lots of conflicts. It's not continuous warfare all the way through. It's not like what we would call like our modern sort of wars, like World War I, World War II, where it is a constant conflict between two sides. There's lots of intermittent peace deals and sort of broken up conflicts. I think I can very quickly show you the whole list of dates, which Wikipedia has. I'll just do this. PowerPoint. Okay, I'll just paste it into this slide. Total War is kind of modern. Kind of. So yeah, you can see it here. This is the dates of all of the... Go away, designer. You can see here, like, so we've got 1494 to 1498, which is the phase that we just talked about. We're about to talk about this one, the Second Italian War, which is 1499 to 1501. And then this is called... This stage here is 1502 to 1504 is the Third Italian War. And then, as you can probably tell from this date here, 1508 to 1516, that is the War of the League of Cambrai. And so yeah, after that there's still 4 more stages of the conflict. There are actually some facts in the Ezio trilogy. Possibly. I've not played Assassin's Creed, aside from Odyssey and a little bit of Black Flag. How was the period viewed at the time, and when was it all grouped together into the Italian Wars? Oh, wait, what the... I just realized I literally didn't finish the sentence. Wait, have I... Oh, I didn't finish the sentence. Hang on, let me go find my notes again. Oh god, I can't find it. Louis butchers the blank. He butchered my sentence, exactly. That's a bit embarrassing. I forgot to finish the sentence. And I can't find it in my notes now. Fuck. Okay, I'm gonna very quickly, guys, don't do this. I'm gonna quickly try and look it up. What is this? Okay, oh, okay. I think we're good. I think I can just... Oh, wait. No, I remember it. Guys, I'm so stupid. Hi, hello, welcome. You can really tell Claire was rushing this whole thing. No, I wasn't rushing. Yes, it is. Okay, that's basically... That's basic gist of it. So not in just one place, but in quite a few places, actually. On his campaign, Louis basically goes through and just murders a lot of people. A lot of the just regular peasantry of the Duchy of Milan, like the regular citizens, not combatants at all. And so in September 1499, that's medieval war, basically. And so Venice and France invade the Duchy of Milan. And Ludovico flees to Germany for the protection of Maximilian I. The Pope at that time, Pope Alexander VI, approves the invasion of Milan in exchange for assistance with conquering Romagna, which is a region. I will quickly go find the map. Romagna is this bit. You can see it here on this map. It says Romagna. Basically, some cities over here had sort of claimed independence. So basically, the Pope's like, yeah, you can invade Milan as long as you help me with this. Because this is a time of the Popes being very ambitious in territorial acquisitions. Because yeah, this is during a time where technically Christian nations could get in trouble for fighting other Christian nations with the Pope. Because why are Christians fighting Christians? You need to be fighting the Ottomans. We need to save Constantinople. Blah 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 blah. That sort of stuff. So yes, Ludovico actually manages to, during this Second Italian War, I think in 1500. He actually manages to take Milan back because the French army moves on. And so this is actually the city of Milan in the background. And this guy over here is Ludovico. And this is the army of Swiss mercenaries that he had hired with the help of Maximilian I. And this is obviously the French, which you can tell from the what's it called? The fleur-de-lis. And so basically his own mercenary army sells him out. And he is handed over to the French, and he eventually he is kept in prison, and then I think he dies in 1508. So that's his end. That's the end of good old Ludovico. He's out of the picture at this point. Okay, so Louis and Ferdinand agree to partition Naples. So Ferdinand of Aragon, of Spain. And so the King of France and the King of Spain essentially have an agreement that, hey, we both have claims over Naples. What if we share it? So they form like a sort of temporary alliance, and they agree to invade Naples together. And so in 1500, you have, I think it's Frederick IV. Yeah, Frederick IV of Naples surrenders to Louis. And so the regions of Naples the Kingdom of Naples is partitioned between the French and the Spanish. I think I can demonstrate where it is. So basically the French get this bit, like this bit up here, I think. And then the Spanish would get the bit that is over here and connects to Sicily, which you can't see on the map, I guess. Maybe we can do this. Okay, so basically France gets the northern bits and Spain gets the southern bit, the heel of the boot, if you will. The heel on the foot of the boot. Okay. So, everything's hunky-dory between the French and the Spanish over control of Naples, except not really. And conflict very quickly breaks out between the French and the Spanish. And this becomes the next theatre of war, the Third Italian War. And so France and Spain now fight each other over control of Naples, the entirety of Naples. And whilst the French are initially victorious against the Spanish, they basically just take 2 years of losses after losses against the Spanish. This is partly because of the French army is being supplemented heavily at this point by Italian troops that they had been given by Florence, from Milan, and from also Naples. And so also at this point, because Spain has control of essentially the Western Mediterranean, they have a much easier job of supplying their armies and maintaining the supply lines due to their navy, shipping over supplies and fresh soldiers. Whereas France has to essentially navigate their supply lines through the entirety of Italy, which is a lot. It would take a lot longer, and they also do not have the naval control of the Mediterranean like the Spanish did. And so very quickly, it's a very brief conflict, only 2 years, and Louis XII is forced to concede the entire region of Naples and Sicily to the Spanish, whilst Ferdinand acknowledges Louis's ownership of Milan. And so we now have the quote-unquote status quo of French-controlled Milan and Spanish-controlled Naples. And so we now have the situation of France realizing, and Louis realizing, that with the situation with Spain finalized, their main rival in northern Italy is now the Republic of Venice. And so, we're all caught up. And I'm sorry for using a screenshot from EU4, but this is apparently a screenshot. It's an old screenshot. If you've played EU4, you can probably tell that. Look how old and dated these provinces are. Trent doesn't even exist. And this isn't split, and Brescia isn't split, Verona isn't split. But yes, this is apparently a screenshot from the War of League of Cambrai that I found on Google. And I couldn't resist. Sorry, guys. I like EU4. As you can see, France and Austria are kind of beating up poor little Venice. Okay, so after about an hour and 20 minutes of preamble, guys, we're now up to the topic of the War of the League of Cambrai. So hopefully it's been making sense so far. If you, damn, feeling nostalgic. Hi, Ray. Welcome. Okay, so if you guys remember the who, what, where, when, why, it's time to finally get into the who. We've done the what and the why, kind of. But there we go. So here we have it. We have the who. The major players are the Papal States, the Kingdom of France, the Holy Roman Empire, the Spanish Empire, and also the Republic of Venice. I'll quickly pretend that I wrote that there. And it also features the Duchy of Ferrara. The Duchy of Ferrara is actually relatively important for this entire conflict, but they are relatively small fry in terms of military strength and also territory. Like, you want to go back to this nice little abstract drawing. Ferrara is this pink one here, or purpley pinkish one here. So they're not super duper important, but they are an important player of the war. I hear they make fast cars, probably. Hi, Mako. How's learning going? It's going well, I think. I hope people are enjoying this. So yes, we also have appearances from the Kingdom of Scotland, England, the Republic of Florence, the Kingdom of Novara, the Duchy of Milan, of course, and also the Swiss. So as you can probably tell, there's a lot of players involved, so hopefully this doesn't get too confusing. But yes, most importantly is... What's this mod called? What do you mean, Thunderknife? This I'm doing a lecture. There's no mods. Okay, so to introduce the major players, so the Papal States. For most of the conflict is run by the Pope Julius II, who weird UI for EU3. Oh no, that was EU4. That was just an old screenshot of EU4. So if you don't know anything about Pope Julius II, he is possibly one of the most powerful and influential popes in history. And he is one of the most sort of ambitious in terms of actual sort of papal power. Instead of, like, because obviously you have popes like Innocent III, who, you know, was responsible for the Fourth Crusade and whatnot, and that's certainly very ambitious to try and, you know, launch a crusade against the Muslims and end up with a Latin kingdom in Greece, essentially, or in the Balkans rather. This pope was instead focusing on the power of the Pope and centralizing the power of the Papal States into the consolidated into the hands of the Pope, and essentially turning. I mean, the Papal States technically has always been an absolute monarchy, but it was popes like Pope Julius II who was responsible for ensuring that that power is controlled specifically by the Pope rather than the Papal States at large. And also, yes, he chose his name because of Julius Caesar, which probably gives you an idea as to his sort of aspirations. And so, yeah, he's called the Warrior Pope and the Fearsome Pope because he had a lot of designs, as aforementioned, the conquest of Romagna. He wanted the Papal States to be a major player in Italy, and that included territorial acquisitions. And we'll see a few of those, I think, later in the lecture. So yes, he ensured that the Papal State and the papacy was a very important part of European diplomatic and political, or rather the diplomatic and political sphere for the 16th century. And also, as you can probably tell, during the 16th century is the rise of the Reformation. So the Papal State is very, very important during this century. He also ratified the Treaty of Tordesillas. I don't know how to pronounce this. I've always read it as Tordesillas, but I don't think that's how you pronounce it. Which is essentially the Treaty of Tordesillas. Okay, so I was kind of close. Tortilla. I was kind of close. The Treaty of Tordesillas. So if you don't know that is about the sort of giving the thumbs up to the Catholic colonizers, saying that, yeah, you can colonize the New World. It's your divine right to spread the word of God to the New World. And so under Pope Julius II, you have the increasing like efforts to, or like the start, I think maybe of, I don't know much sort of history of colonization of the New World. You find like the Catholicization of the New World happening in earnest under the rule of, or I suppose not the rule, but the watchful gaze of Julius II. And yes, as you can probably tell, he was not a fan of Venice, because Venice was his political rival in the north of Italy. And also, yes, he removed the Borgias from power in the Papal States and exiled them to Spain. So that's good. The Papal States, I suppose. Okay. Damn, ads need to refresh since stream was blurry on your phone. Oh no. I mean, there is a way around getting around those ads. Did you know that you can subscribe for free using Twitch Prime? Yeah, he was the Pope. He was that Pope. Sorry, no tits today. So, just hydrating a little bit because I've been talking for about 20 minutes straight without drinking any water.
Skitsupenhauer gifted sold at 665 as subscription.
I forgot to turn off the notification. What if I do this?
Tier 1 sub to sold at 665.
No, why is that?
They have given 171 gift subs
okay.
in the channel.
I need to split that so I can probably mute that notification. Thank you very much, Skitsupenhauer. Enjoy your funny emotes and no ads sold at. Spain managed to somehow gain access to 90% of the Americas, but Portugal got the better deal for some reason. I wouldn't be able to comment on that, sorry. Hope they're not so dope. No. So, as you can tell, Pope Julius II dies in 1513, so he is not the no. Guys, shh.
Hugs for Janice Tealers just resubscribed for 2 months.
Ah.
Did you know Amazon Prime comes with a free subscription to a Twitch channel of your choice every month?
Thank you very much, Hugs for Gene Stealers. Thank you very much. If possible, can you guys save them for during the breaks? Because I don't want to have like the whole presentation, or at least not interrupt like mid-sentence or mid-thought, I suppose. But thank you guys, thank you so much. That's really generous. Mute your sub alerts. I should do that, but it won't do it. Oh, and also thank you to the people who followed. I may as well say that now because I refreshed the thing. Okay. So as you can tell, Pope Julius II wasn't Pope for the entire conflict. We actually have Pope Leo X, which is just like a cool name. Just stop subscribing. No, not like that. So Pope Leo X is actually from the Medici family. And for lack of a better term, he's a bit of a silly sausage. And became Pope at the age of 37. He was also the last non-priest to be elected Pope. So he wasn't actually a member of the clergy. Which is kind of wild. And so he signed the Treaty of Mechlin, I think, or Mechlin, which confirmed the alliance of Henry VIII, Maximilian I, Ferdinand II, and the Pope against the French, which is later in the war. He attempted to create the Respublica Christiana in order to drum up support for a new crusading effort. Because he wanted to invade the Ottomans. Yes, you could become Pope without being the priest. It did happen. And also, this last part is so just absolute batshit. Like, so as you can probably tell, he's from the Medici family. His dad pulled some strings with the previous with Pope. What's this? Pope Innocent VIII, who I think was also a member of the Medici family. I would have to double check that. He was made a cardinal at the age of 13. Isn't that insane? Imagine one of the most powerful members of the Catholic Church being a 13-year-old brat. It's just like absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, shenanigans. Yes, exactly. Okay, so that's the Papal States of who, basically. Hi, Sarah OCA, welcome. You're being ageist? Sorry. The power of money compelled him. And also, I guess blood is thicker than the power of Christ. Pope Jets, but even younger than actual Jets. Mia would totally make a good Pope, yeah. Guys, I'll get right on that. I'll make them the Pope. Okay, so moving on, we have the Kingdom of France. This handsome fellow right here is Louis XII, who is formerly Louis de Orleans. He rules the Kingdom of France from 1498 to 1515. When he ascended to the throne, he divorced his current wife, who was his cousin. And I believe he was married to his cousin in an attempt to actually extinguish his own bloodline by, I think not Charles. I don't think Charles, but like a previous French monarch saw him as a threat, and so tried to extinguish his bloodline by getting him to marry his cousin, and basically result in no children being born, slash, you know, super duper inbred children that could be considered as illegitimate, or is not suited to rule the country. So he marries Anne of Brittany to reinforce the personal union of Brittany and France, which I believe had been established by the previous king, Charles VIII. And so yes, just a brief spoilers, guys. He conquers the Duchy of Milan in 1500. And also, as we mentioned before, the French involvement in Italy begins with Milan seeking French protection against the Venetians in the... where is it? The first part of the first Italian war, in the Italian Wars, essentially. And then attempts to take the Kingdom of Naples, held from 1501 to 1504, before ceding it to Spain, as we had mentioned before. And so yes, I've mentioned it here as well on the slide. The French conquest of the Kingdom of Naples triggered the original Italian Wars in 1494 and is responsible for all of this happening, essentially. And yes, after the conquest of Milan, wished to expand his power into the Italian peninsula further, including the conquest of Genoa, and also attempting to conquer Pisa and other parts of Italy. But as you can tell, he dies in 1515, which is not the end of the War of the League of Cambrai. So he is succeeded by Francis I, who rules from 1515 to 1547, who has a very sort of like Henry VIII-esque sort of appearance in this. And I think it might just be the art style rather than they looked identical. So yes, he succeeds Louis's involvement in the War of the League of Cambrai. Also, this phase is sometimes referred to as Francis's First Italian War, which is the from 1515 to 1516. Would be involved in the entirety of the Italian Wars he would be heavily involved in the Italian Wars for the entirety of his reign, but it wasn't the only important military campaign that he was involved in. He was geographically surrounded by the Habsburgs and attempted to gain allies to help fend off his political rivals. Yes. He including trying to become the Holy Roman Emperor in 1519, which he failed. And also tried to form an alliance with Henry VIII of England in 1520, but that also failed. And then, in a very controversial move, established the Franco-Ottoman Empire alliance with Solomon the Magnificent. which was a very, very controversial alliance at the time because it was a Catholic ruler allying a Muslim ruler and forming a alliance that would go on to span, I believe, almost 2.5 centuries. And that alliance only formally ended in the time of Napoleon, when Napoleon invaded Egypt, I think. Anyway, I need to just hydrate very quickly. I'm going full teacher mode. Sorry. I bet that made the Pope mad. Yes, it definitely did. It made a lot of people mad. It was very controversial. When they say there was a precedent for popes annulling marriages, do you mean precedent? Is that the divorce precedent that generally refreshed when talking about Henry's 8th divorces? Oh, yeah, you meant precedent. Okay, yeah. No, because divorces had happened a lot. Yes. Hi, Barry's there. Gonna have to watch the back of the VOD later. Yeah, welcome. So yes, very controversial figure because, why would you ally the Muslims? They're the enemy. We've got to save the Holy Land. Blah 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 blah. Obviously, that becomes less and less important in the 16th century because you get the rise of the Protestant Reformation and whatnot. Okay, so moving on from France, we have the Holy Roman Empire. And thankfully for the Holy Roman Empire, they were only led by one nation, one ruler during this entire time period, which is Maximilian I. And he was Holy Roman Emperor, officially coronated in 1508, but we will get to that in a little bit, and died in 1519. So he was never actually crowned by the Pope, which is, of course, if you know anything about the Holy Roman Empire, is that it's not the history professor here, Nanara, but I remember... Oh, hi, Nanara. I wonder how Solomon didn't take over all of Europe, considering all Christians were fighting each other. Part of that was getting bogged down during the winter, limited to how far they go. There's all sorts of different limitations as to why Solomon and other Ottoman rulers didn't manage to take more of Europe, considering Christians fighting Christians was very commonplace. But yes, okay, so he proclaimed himself emperor in 1508, which was later recognized by Pope Julius II as part of a sort of diplomatic play by the Pope, because he didn't want to upset Maximilian, because they were allies at the time. Almost like he was fighting Persia a lot as well. Yes. So, of course, it wasn't just Europe that the Ottomans had to contend with. Thank you, Anime Acumen. Yeah. Not to mention the other neighbors. Exactly, yeah. Yeah, you guys are correct. It's very easy to just be like, oh, why didn't so-and-so conquer? Well, they probably had lots of other things to deal with, is usually the answer. So yes, this is somewhat shocking because the Pope had to coronate the King of the Romans as the Holy Roman Emperor, because you can't be the Holy Roman Emperor without the Pope's permission. Otherwise, you're not. You have to get rid of that bit. And also, probably that bit. But yes, through his marriage to Mary the Rich, he gained control of most of Burgundy, and actually had conflict with, I believe, Charles VIII, over control of Burgundy, and eventually the borders were settled, and he ended up with most of what is the Low Countries, which would be called modern-day Netherlands. And so yes, so Austria, so he's Maximilian I of Habsburgs, which is Austria essentially. He took back Austria from the Hungarians. So if you know of, what's his face? Matthias Corvinus, who had conquered quite a portion of Austria, including Vienna. It was Maximilian who was responsible for reclaiming all the Austrian territory. Yes, it is the guy from Civ 6. He was responsible for getting back all the territory that was lost, and also even invaded into Hungary itself. I think he took most of Croatia, and Croatia was actually wanting to become ruled by Maximilian, but eventually had to settle for peace with the Hungarians, as long as the Hungarians recognized him as the Holy Roman Emperor, essentially. And also, as you can see here, established the Habsburg dynasty in Spain. So his marriage of his son to the Spanish is what kickstarts the Habsburg dynasty in Spain, and as of course results in the reign of Charles V and most of Europe being controlled by one man, or led by one man, I should say, which is very scary for the French. But when it comes to the conflict of the War of the League of Cambrai, Maximilian was actually not able to do that much, as you can probably tell from this next part. I'll just move out the way just a little bit. He was nicknamed by the Italians Maximilian the Moneyless because he could barely afford an army to fight in the conflict. Also known as the Last Knight. Yes, I have read about that, but apparently that title is disputed by historians. But that is an area of that's an area of historical academic discussion that I don't have time to read into. So all I know is that it's somewhat contested that he is quote unquote the Last Knight. And yeah, as you can probably tell, so in Italian, it's Massimiliano de Pochi Denari, which translates to Maximilian the Moneyless, essentially. And he did not like Venice because he was a firm believer that the lens of the terra firma lens of Venice was rightful imperial territory and should belong to the Holy Roman Empire. So yeah, he wasn't a fan of Venice. You might notice a few sort of common beliefs between our rulers. So we have King of France, Louis XII, wants to expand power in the Italian peninsula. Who does he have to attack? The Venetians. Pope Julius II wants to curb Venetian power in northern Italy, so he doesn't like the Venetians either. Maximilian I doesn't like the Venetians. And so, moving on to the Spaniards, we have Ferdinand II of Aragon, who is King of Aragon, and through his marriage, through his wife, Isabella I of Castile, rules a dynastically unified Spain. So he's technically considered the first king of Spain, although Aragon and Castile technically remained two separate kingdoms until they were formally unified in the early 1700s. I believe it was 1706. And why would you look at that? He didn't like the Venetians either, as the Venetians controlled cities along the coastline of Naples. So you might see a few common themes of people not liking the Venetians and wanting to take them down a peg. So let's get on to our good old Venice themselves. Honestly, fair enough. So we have Doge Leonardo Loredan. I apologize if I butcher that. So he was Doge from 1501 to 1521. So he is the Doge of Venice for the entirety of the conflict. And he was one of the most important Doges in Venetian history. And whilst he didn't achieve much in the way of territorial acquisition, as you can probably tell, I believe he starts his rule. He started his rule basically during I think it's the second Venetian Ottoman War, in which Venice lost a lot of its territory in the Aegean and the Mediterranean, the eastern part of the Mediterranean, which is very sad for the Venetians. So yeah, he had to navigate the Venetian Republic through dealing with the Ottomans, the Mamluks, the Pope, Genoa, the Holy Roman Empire, the French, the Egyptians, and the Portuguese. Is Dogecoin named after the Doge of Venice? I don't think so. I think it's named after a funny spelling of dog. Is he alive in this painting? It is a very realistic painting, isn't it? It's like scarily realistic. So this was after the Crusades. Yes, well after the Crusades. So the last sort of... whilst there were people who still tried to make Crusades happen, for example, both Julius II and Pope Leo X both tried to start Crusades, but died before they could get anything going. And obviously had more important things to deal with. Yeah, Doge is just a... it's the Venetian way of saying ducks, which is the Italian way of saying duke, I think. The Crusader state still existed, yes. Yeah? Yes, technically. Like the Teutonic Order and all that still technically existed. Probably also wanted to invade Venice, yeah. Duke is a common name for dogs. Coincidence? Sorry, I'm just gonna burp. I'll mute. Okay, so he's considered a Machiavellian leader because he's rather shrewd and cunning, as Machiavellian leaders are wont to do. And so what kick-started the conflict with the Pope is that... I'm actually in the way, aren't I? So he occupied the territory of Romagna, which I had mentioned earlier, in the northern Papal States, which kick-started the War of the League of Cambrai. So I'll quickly get the map back. So if you see here, this bit here is Romagna, and Venice. Basically what happened is these city-states had gained independence. You can see it here, it says Romagna there, right there. These city-states here had gained independence. Ravenna at this point was already part of Venice. Was there an Everyone Hates Venice Day back then? Kind of. And so a lot of these towns and cities, including like Rimini, for example, I know is one for certain. A lot of these towns, fearing the wrath of the Pope, agreed to allow the Venetians to rule over them because they wanted protection from the Pope, and they didn't want to be part of the Papal States. Essentially, is what happened. Okay, we'll go back to this slide. And so yes, that's what kickstarts the conflict of the League of Cambrai. So we've done our who, now we're on to where. Why is this? Why is it? Huh? Why? What? Huh? Why is this? Why is this got a... what is this line? Guys, I don't know how to PowerPoint. So the conflict of the War of the League of Cambrai primarily takes place in Italy, with some conflicts in the north and south of France, which we will get to later, in England, and in Spain. And then after where comes when. So you might recognize this image here. I've basically just copy-pasted from Wikipedia because it's a decent way of looking at the absolute diplomatic fuckery that is the War of the League of Cambrai. So hopefully it makes sense. It might seem very confusing, and you might notice that there's some flip-flopping going on with people, which is hopefully what I'm going to explain in a little bit. So we have 4 stages to our conflict. The first of which is 1508 to 1510, which is the League of Cambrai forming against Venice, which you can see here, which includes the Papal States, France, Holy Roman Empire, the Spanish, and Ferrara. against little old Venice. And you can probably imagine how that conflict goes for poor little Venice. And then we move into the second phase, which is, I think, sometimes referred to as the Ferrara Wars, which is France and Ferrara are just against the Papal States and Venice. So the Holy Roman Empire and the Spanish at this point left the conflict because it no longer concerned them. And I'll get into why the Papal States suddenly sides with Venice in a little bit. And then the third phase is 1511 to 1513, in which France plus various allies fights against the Holy League, which is essentially the Papal States re-inviting everyone back into a league, but this time, instead of fighting Venice, we fight France. And so that triggers a sort of cascade of various different nations joining the conflict. Basically, the Pope entices people who weren't fans of the French to join in the war. And that entices France to call upon allies such as Scotland into bringing them into the war, often to rather disastrous measures. And then the final phase of the battle of the war, is from 1513 to 1516, in which France, Venice, and Ferrara fight the Papal States, the Spanish, the Holy Roman Empire, England, Milan, and the Swiss. And so you might notice that, wait a sec, Milan's there on the list. Why is Milan there? Wasn't Milan ruled by the French at this point? And yes, I will get to that. Okay. Yes, it might seem very confusing, and why, like, for example, people in chat saying, why is Scotland there? Scotland is very far from Italy. So it's important to note that Scotland didn't actually fight in Italy. There are different theatres of war, which, if you look at this slide, there's mention of England, which probably explains what's going to happen. Okay, so we've done the when. Now it's time for why. So this is a nice map, but I couldn't find any sort of historical sources of it. But it is a very pretty map that I found on Wikipedia. Which is why I feel okay putting it in the slides, because I know I won't get in trouble for posting this map. It's very detailed, as you can probably tell. So the why. All of the major players involved in this conflict, so France, Italy, France, Pope, Habsburgs, Spanish, they all wanted Venice gone. So what did they do? They basically gang up on Venice. So France, Venice was their major rival in northern Italy after they gained control over the Duchy of Milan. The Papal States feared the power and influence of Venice and wanted the land that they had previously claimed, which is Romagna. The Holy Roman Empire believed that Venetian terra firma belonged to the empire, wanted access to Rome. So yes, as I mentioned before, when you get crowned Holy Roman Emperor, or when you become leader of the Holy Roman Empire, you need to go get crowned in Rome by the Pope. And Venice blocks Maximilian from making this march because they think it's a pretext for invading, essentially. And guess what? They're correct. So Spain, the Spanish saw the Venetians as a threat to control over the Mediterranean and wanted the Venetian towns in Naples. So I can't show it on the map, but basically towards the heel of Naples, there were a few towns along the coastline that the Venetians controlled. And then, just for a laugh, I put Venice, just a silly little sausage that wanted more land and money. I'm sorry for not being so academic and not rigorous, so strict and historical with this little description. I couldn't resist. Okay. Everyone wanted Venice's money and land, essentially. Because as you can see, the Duchy of Milan here, a lot of this land could technically be seen as part of the Duchy of Milan, and France wants it. Okay, So, moving into the War of the League of Cambrai. We get into the prelude. So, we technically haven't started the conflict yet. My immersion in history ruined. Sorry, B. Zenkichi, sorry. Also, hello, Volcrum. Welcome. Okay, so the start of the conflict begins in 1507, when Louis XII retakes Genoa after the city had revolted against the French rule that was established there. In mid-1507, Louis and Ferdinand II of Aragon meet to set the groundwork of an alliance against the Venetians because they both wanted Venice dealt with, essentially. So we have the establishment of an alliances focused on getting rid of the Venetians, because they're not exactly the most popular bunch. I mean, even today, if you ask some Bizaboos who they hate the most, and they probably won't say the Ottomans, they'd probably say the Venetians. Venice sounds like a mischievous dachshund, kind of. So yes, Julius II manages to convene an alliance between Louis and Maximilian, which was, again, to do with dealing with the Venetians. But the alliance falls through. So we almost had an alliance between the Habsburgs and the Valois over control of Venice, or fighting Venice, which is quite the achievement of Venice to unify the Habsburgs and Valois against something. So yes, Julius encourages Maximilian to attack the Republic of Venice, and Maximilian himself uses his journey to Rome to get coronated as his imperial coronation as a pretext to march into Venetian territory. You remember hearing somewhere that the Venetians tried to save art and knowledge during the sack of Constantinople? Yes, they did. They saved a lot of cultural artifacts, including the Four Horses, which are still in St. Mark's Basilica, not St. Paul's. Yes, they did manage to quote unquote save stuff, which they saved by taking it, which is a very sort of British approach to artifact saving, I guess. And yes, so Maximilian is granted 12,000 troops for his Italian Zug, which is the, I believe, the German term for the march that the emperor is supposed to make for his coronation in Rome by the Pope. So 12,000 troops might not seem like a lot, but bear in mind that I believe the largest army in this entire conflict is about 25,000 troops, I think. So large armies at this time, you have to ignore what you know from games like Europa Universalis. Like, people weren't marching around in Europe with 50,000 soldiers at once. Okay, so moving on. So Maximilian requests permission to march through the Venetian territory, but the Republic believes this to be a ruse and figure that it's Maximilian trying to attack. And guess what? They were right. So Maximilian proclaims himself Holy Roman Empire in Trent, which is to the north of Venice. I think if I show this map. Trent is... Trent is this one here. So it's basically right on top of, to the north of Venice. And Trent is a bishopric. It's not just like a random place. They just didn't know how to build their nation properly. 100k stacked by 1500, by the way. Yeah. No, it's because France had they had Lucky Nation enabled. So they get extra troops. Just taking a sip. And after this slide, I will be taking a quick bathroom break. So just a heads up. We have made pretty good progress, though. I might be able to finish this presentation within the 3rd hour. maybe. We've made some pretty good progress, and like I said, this topic was a lot harder to research, and there wasn't as much sort of primary sources to rely on for this topic, so as it was with the Fourth Crusade. Okay, so yes, Maximilian declares war on Venice, and Venice, who is technically at this point, despite France trying to, as mentioned in the previous slide, France is technically still allied to Venice at this point, and despite Louis of France and Ferdinand of Spain essentially trying to form an alliance against Venice, they were still technically allied at the time. And so the French actually do send troops to help the Venetians. I believe the troops stationed in the French-controlled Milan were actually sent to help the Venetians. So Maximilian gains some initial victories against the Venetians. The Venetians then go on to utterly humiliate the imperial army at the Battle of Cadore. It's an completely utter one-sided fight. I should actually include the date of this. One sec, let me just go double check that. Give me a sec. Here we go. I also don't know why I have a full stop. So technically this is the start of the War of the League of Cambrai at this point. Kind of like how Italy was still allied with to Germany and Austria-Hungary in 1915. Yeah, kinda. Yeah. Oh, don't need a second bracket. So yes, Venetian counteroffensives into the Holy Roman Empire are incredibly successful. Venice captures Trieste, which, if you don't know where Trieste is, it is... I believe it's this bit here. You see this bit where Venice and Istria are... Venice here and Venice here, which is Istria, is disconnected. Trieste is this bit here that connects Venice to Venice's land in Istria. Hopefully that made sense. And then, yes, Venice agrees to a separate 3-year truce with Maximilian, much to the dismay of the French. So you can see why all of a sudden France is not a fan of that, because their ally, the Venetians, all of a sudden, despite doing very well in their military campaign, pieces out against his political rival, which were the Habsburgs. And so that pisses off Louis quite a lot. And so we move into the League officially forms and attacks Venice. But I'm going to quickly go run to the bathroom, guys. So I'll only be a few minutes. I just need to... Yeah, I've got plenty of water still. Wrong one. Okay, I'm just going to take it. It's not going to be 5 minutes. Just ignore the 5. It's going to be like two minutes maybe. So make sure you stretch as well, guys. Stretch your legs. And I guess if you're just take a little break as well. So yeah, I'm just going to go to the bathroom. Okay. Hopefully everyone's back. Okay. So now we're into the war proper. Okay. Hopefully I can do this justice. So the League of the League of Cambrai forms, or organized by the Pope. So I'm joking. Hello, came for the hashtag, will stay with the history. Welcome, Nell. Thank you very much. At least it wasn't as backstabby as this. Yeah. You can't expect to replicate a university experience without the means of getting into the country. Riverson, welcome. Thank you so much for the raid. I'll give you a shout out very quickly. Riverson. You finished a game. Nice. What were you up to? Eastwood. How did it go? I don't know what that is, sorry. But for the people from Riverson's raid, welcome. My name is Cleo Iti. I am a history professor, and I'm actually using my I'm using my qualifications on Twitch. I'm doing a history lecture on the War of the League of Cambrai. We're currently 2 hours in. So you're joining a little bit late, but welcome. If you want to learn about history, then some wacky history and diplomatic fuckery, then by all means stick around. I usually play strategy games and history games. If that interests you, yeah, feel free to stick around. Thank you so much for the raid. You beat the breeder bot. Nice. Breeder raid. Oh gosh, that's a bit spooky. But welcome. Thank you. Oh, I wish this thing updated automatically. Thank you for the follow as well. It's a long story. Okay. Thank you so much for the raid. Okay. So now back to Venice being punching bags, essentially. So the League of Cambrai forms, and the Pope manages to bring on board the aforementioned the French, the Spanish, the Holy Roman Empire, and the Duchy of Ferrara against Venice, and also the Papal States as well. And so this is very, very quickly a one-sided war, as you can probably tell from those odds. So the French army outnumbers the Venetian forces 2-1 at the Battle of Agnadello in 1509, which is a catastrophic defeat for the Venetians, who are now left completely isolated. They have no friends in the world. They also have the threat of the Ottomans attacking at any moment as well. I think they might have had, at this point, technically still a peace treaty with the Ottomans, but what's a peace treaty to anyone, really? It's just a piece of paper. You can just rip it up. And so, yes, the Venetians very, very quickly lose the terra firma, which, if you remember, guys, the terra firma is this land in mainland Italy that was controlled by the Venetians. So all the territory that's outside of the lagoons of Venice is called the terra firma, and very, very quickly in this battle, the Venetians just completely lose all of that territory. Basically in the blink of an eye. The French, the Habsburg army, the Papal State, the Spanish and the Ferraran armies very quickly just overrun the territory. And the Venetians can't really do anything to fight back, so they do at the Siege of Padua in 1509. A large imperial army force, led by the emperor himself, attempts to retake Padua, which had flip-flopped in control between the Venetian and the League side. And so Venice had recently retaken it. And so the emperor is just utterly incapable of taking the city. And then he's unable to pay for his mercenaries and his regular soldiers. So he just withdraws back to his own territory in Tyrol. And that is basically all the emperor does in this conflict. So he's very, very quickly out of the picture, and that's how he earns the nickname the Penniless. Yeah. So yeah, he's gone. So technically now the League is down one of their major players, but everyone keeps fighting. So at the Battle of Polesella in 1509, which is actually, if I remember correctly, if we look at the more detailed map, I believe it's this river here. You can see it here under. Guys, ignore that I'm moving my text. Okay, ignore that. You see this river here that is. Oh, it actually might be the Po River. Might be part of the... Wait, hang on. Let me quickly consult the archives. Yeah, I spelled it wrong. Okay, no. It is the River Po. Okay, so it is this river here, which you can see kind of separates... oh, there it is in the... No, that's Policena. You see this river here that says... it says here the Po River. It's basically on this river, and it separates Ferrara from Venice, Venetian territory. And so the Venetian navy was actually up this river. Possibly to deal with the any incursions from the from Ferrara, and to, you know, hamper the Ferrarans and to, you know, siege down the Ferrarans. Oh, one sec, got a cough. And this is why you make sure your finances have some credit before you start an invasion, not after. Yeah, basically. Turns out you should have money to pay your troops, otherwise you don't have an army. So yes, the Ferraran cannons essentially shred the shit out of the Venetian fleet stationed in the Po River. Oh my god, I had it right there. I literally just had to read a little bit further. So I believe 2,000 members of the Venetian navy are killed. I believe a bunch of the navy sinks in the river. A bunch of ships are captured. Pretty spectacular defeat for the Venetians, because, you know, their whole prowess is their naval power, and then they just got bombarded by the Ferrarans with cannons, essentially. So, as you can probably tell, this is your favorite type of content. Thank you, Grim Knight. Welcome. As you can probably tell, the war is very one-sided. The Venetians just get absolutely decimated by the League, and it very quickly occurs to Pope Julius. He's gotten what he wanted. He got the territory in Romagna. He now controls that, and the Pope Julius is saying is thinking, okay, that's the conflict over. We can end the conflict now. Except he has to deal with the fact that now France controls a large portion of North Italy. And so he's basically just replaced one monster, the Republic of Venice, with an even more powerful, scary monster, the Kingdom of France. And so yes, he realizes, Pope Julius realizes the new threat in northern Italy is now the French, and is able to quickly, essentially he makes peace with the Republic, and then very quickly brings the Republic onto his side to help them in the fight against the French. So at this point, the Spanish no longer has any sort of purpose in the conflict either, so they also leave, because they've gotten what they wanted. They've gotten their towns back from the Venetians in Naples. And so yeah, things aren't looking good for Venice. And so the terra firma is, I believe, being occupied by both the French and the also the Imperial Army. I think technically the Imperial Army, or rather the Emperor Maximilian, is still claiming that land is rightful Imperial territory. But technically France is the one fighting in the war, and the Emperor isn't actually fighting in the war. But it's all like just territory being disputed over, essentially. And also, another thing is that the Pope also desires the land of the Duchy of Ferrara, and wishes to annex that into the Papal States, because Ferrara is a very wealthy and very powerful little duchy in Italy. And actually, it's, if you, I'll quickly go back to the map. So, as you can see, it's here. Oh, there's an alert in the way. Thank you for the follow, by the way. You can kind of see that it sits in a very important region, right? It basically separates the Papal States from the northern territory of northern Italy. So the Duchy of Milan and Venice. Ferrara acts as like a check or a block So it's keeping both these in check, like it's keeping both Milan and Venice in check, but it's also stopping the Papal States from expanding beyond it. So it acts as a buffer on both sides, to both sides of its territory. And so if you don't know anything about Ferrara, it was very famous for its forts and its defensiveness, and also having a shitload of cannons on its walls. And it's supposedly some of the finest cannoneer makers in Italy were based in Ferrara because they needed it to defend themselves. Okay. So yes, we find ourselves in a situation where Pope Julius now sides with the Venetians, and the League is no longer needed because the League has achieved its goal. The Republic of Venice has been curbed. Their power has been curbed. And so the League just ends because Maximilian and Ferdinand, they don't need to do anything. They've gotten what they wanted out of the conflict, and so they just stop. They just go home, essentially. And so now we move into the second phase of the war, which is Ferrara and France against the Pope and Venice. So it's sometimes called the it's called the Ferraranese War, and it's the second stage of the conflict from 1510 to 1511. And so the Papal Venetian forces are actually very successful at first. They repel the French army from the terra firma, and they push them back into the Duchy of Milan. And then, so after that, they then turn their focus on Ferrara itself. And so there's a bit of a scuffle, and some territory changes hands, but it's nothing permanent. Things are captured and then lost. For example, in the siege of Mirandola, which Pope Julius II personally leads, and this is the artwork of the Pope here. This is him meeting the people of the citizens of Mirandola and promising them that they will be spared because he is the Pope and they are good Catholics and God-fearing people. And so yes, they are initially very successful. Unfortunately, Venice and the Pope were unable to separate Ferrara from France in terms of like diplomatic ties. And so the attempts to annex the duchy failed. And so realizing that just the strength of the Papal States and Venice is not enough to curb the power of the French. Oh, and also, if you don't know about this last bit, Duke of Urbino has a heated duchy moment. I don't remember the specific territory that is lost to the Ferrarans. But basically, the Pope blames the Duke of Urbino for the loss of territory. And supposedly the territory had been left in the hands of one of the cardinals. And the Duke didn't like that he had been blamed for the loss of the territory because it was the cardinal that lost the territory, technically not him. And so, in an act of rage, murders the cardinal in full view of the Swiss guards in Rome. Just like murders him. Just like executes a cardinal. And just gets away with it because he had a heated Duke moment. And it's just like, huh? It's such a just like bizarre moment that happened in the war because like the Pope's just like, it was all your fault, and then the guy being like, no, it was his fault, and then just fucking shanks him and just like gets away with it. Like, you can probably tell this conflict is already very, very, very silly. And then you have moments like that happening, and it's just like, what? Okay, so we move on very quickly to the third stage of the war, which is from 1511 to 1514. And we have the Holy League, which, if you remember, basically everyone gangs up on France. So if we go back to this page, you can see it's France and Ferrara are the main powers involved on the French side, and the Holy League calls in a bunch of the basically recalls the Spanish and the Holy Roman Empire in, but also manages to call in the British and also a lot of Swiss mercenaries to help. So yes, Spain and the Holy Roman Empire joined the conflict against the French. Ferdinand signed the Treaty of Westminster, so that's Ferdinand of Aragon, so Ferdinand, the Spanish Ferdinand, signs a treaty with Henry VIII of England, and so England joins the side on the League. He joins the Henry VIII joins the Holy League against the French because Henry VIII still desires, I mean, he's an English monarch, he desires the French land. So he uses the League as a pretext, as a justification for him to invade and attack the French. And so he invades and raids northern France. Yes, okay. So I believe quite a lot of cities and regions in the north of France are raided / pillaged / captured by the English. So now the French are now fighting a two-front war, but it gets worse for the French. So they win at the Battle of Ravenna against the papal Spanish forces, but lose the General Gaston de Foix, who is a young, very charismatic leader for the French and a very talented general. Unfortunately, he dies. This is him. This is Gaston de Foix. This is him dying at the Battle of Ravenna. And so yes, the Holy League is very, very successful in this campaign, and they actually push the French army out of Italy completely. And by pushing the French out of Italy, the League is able to reinstate the Sforza to Milan. And so the Duchy of Milan is reborn, and the Sforza back in charge. It's not, and it's, I believe it's one of the sons of, hang on, let me get the, where is he? It's the son of Gian Galeazzo. One of his sons is reinstated as Duke of Milan. So even though his father was basically killed by his uncle, essentially. Wink, wink. Guys, he totally wasn't killed by his uncle. I closed my eyes. Guys, I suck at winking. Oh. Golly gosh, that was scary. Wink. Okay. So his, I guess, technically his, like, great-nephew? Second cousin? I don't know. I'm bad at thinking. Oh yeah, Flodden is connected to the war. We will get to the Flodden conflict. Okay. So back to this. So yeah, French troops withdraw from Italy in 1512. And also in Florence. So Florence had sided with the French. And were basically, if you remember the conflicts earlier with Charles VIII marching into Naples, he was able to do so because he got access through Florence, because Florence supported, Florence was a pro-French ruling republic, essentially, at that point. A pro-French republic at that point. So in 1512 as well, so not only is the Duchy of Milan reinstated and the French rule is overthrown, but the Florentine Republic is also invaded and their pro-French ruler is overthrown, and how do I say this? Giuliano de Medici is installed as ruler. Juliana. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I should have realized it's Juliana. My bad. So yes, continuing on with this point. So because the English are involved in the conflict, the Scottish get called in by the French because the French and Scottish are allies. I believe Louis XII had reinstated the alliance with the Scottish to try and restore the Oud Alliance, which, if you don't know, is the historical alliance of the Scottish and the French based on their shared distrust and hatred of the English, essentially. So yes, Scotland gets called into the war. Yes, the Oud Alliance, yes. Essentially, it's like a 16th century version of the Oud Alliance. So yes, Scotland enters the war, and King James IV valiantly rises to the challenge and invades England, and then very quickly dies in the Battle of Flodden, along with a large portion of the Scottish nobility. Basically, this battle was a massive disaster for the Scots. They get absolutely destroyed. Henry wasn't even there. Like, Henry VIII wasn't even there. This is just a random English army that... I say random, that's a bit disrespectful. This is just an English army that wasn't even led by the king, that fought off the Scots and just absolutely destroyed them. So yeah, it causes a massive political crisis in Scotland. Scotland very quickly leaves the war. So they're in the war. They're in the War of the League of Cambrai for about less than a year, definitely. And a very heavily pregnant Catherine of Aragon led the English army to victory? Really? Is that true? I didn't read too much into it because it's just a blip of... It's just a blip on the actual broader topic. So yes, the Scots are like, well, we're out. We just lost our king. Also, fun fact, King James IV's death at the Battle of Flodden is the last time a monarch from Great Britain actually died in combat, which is a fun fact. Just a blip of the Scots getting wrecked again. Yeah, kinda. So we have the Scottish enter the war, very quickly leave the war, and the British or the English rather, are invading France from the north. From the south, Ferdinand II invades. And so he attacks the Iberian part of the Kingdom of Novara. And so if you don't know who that is, it's just it's a little kingdom. I don't know if any of the maps include it. No. Okay. If you don't know what the Kingdom of Novara is, it's basically a tiny, tiny little kingdom compared to the rest of Iberia and, well, France. And so I don't believe they were actually... It's Basque-land, yes. I don't believe Navarre was actually allied to the French at this point. I would have to look into that further. Yeah, northeastern Spain, yes. How is Flodden a real word? I don't know. Its king would eventually become the King of France. Yes, that's true. So the Spanish invade Novara, using the whole chaos of the War of the League of Cambrai, or the Holy League rather, at this point, to invade, and very quickly takes over the Spanish part of Novara, because Novara is basically, it sits between, like, it has territory in Spain and territory in France. And so yes, very quickly they overrun it, although the eventual full conquest of Novara wouldn't be finished until after Ferdinand II's death. So yeah, it's part of the conflict, but not like a major part. And basically it just sort of shows that the chaos of the whole War of the League of Cambrai led to other territorial changes, because it's just a period of utter chaos and people attacking others and it not going well, or sometimes going very well. And so yes, Henry VIII and Maximilian invade France from the north. So that's both the French and the Holy Roman Emperor invading the French. Defeats Louis at the Battle of the Spurs, I think. Bye, Katius. Thank you for stopping by. And so yeah, things aren't going well for the French, guys. And also, an army of Swiss mercenaries have been hired by the papacy in 1512 and join on the side of the papacy. And so yeah, but as you can probably tell, it's not looking good for the French. Also, yeah, this, as you can probably tell, this art is from the Battle of Flodden. Although I believe this battle might not have featured so heavily knights, and more would have featured a lot of pole arms and pikemen, rather than heavily armored knights. Especially on the side of the British, I believe. Okay, so things aren't looking good for the French, but Louis gets a bit of a lifeline because there's tensions in the Holy League. Despite the league doing very, very well, things aren't looking up for the league, essentially. So Pope Julius II and the Venetians support the reinstatement of the Sforza to the Duchy of Milan, whereas both Ferdinand of Spain and Maximilian of the Holy Roman Empire preferred that one of their relatives to be installed to the throne. Obviously, that would be bad for anyone. They don't want a pro-Spanish or pro-Holy Roman Emperor ruler in Italy, because they're currently fighting to push a pro-French Milanese duchy out of power as well. So they want a quote-unquote Italian independent duchy to be in power, because otherwise they're just going to be back to square one of fighting another foreign power for control over Italy, control and influence over Italy. And also, yes, Ferdinand objected to the Papal States' attempt to annex the Duchy of Ferrara again, because it helps keep, as I mentioned earlier, the Duchy of Ferrara helps keep the Pope's power in check, as well as other powers in Italy is in check, because it's very strategically located in sort of separating the various different Italian powers. And so, yes, it's very useful for its continued existence to keep the balance of power in place. And then, yes, Maximilian, despite not really doing much in the original conflict against Venice, aside from lose and then not pay his troops, he refuses to relinquish any imperial-held territory, which included, despite being allies at this point, the Venetian terra firma in Veneto, and even signed an agreement with the Pope to exclude Venice entirely from the final partition of the League War against France. So, despite being allies with the Venetians at this point, they want to fuck over their own allies, because that land belongs to the Empire, not to the Venetians, even though it was originally Venetian land in the first place. Which is kind of just like a wild thing to do to your own ally. Which, of course, when the Republic of Venice objects to that, Pope Julius then threatens to reform the League of Cambrai against the Venetians and to wipe them out for good. And so now you have own allies threatening each other with essentially just wiping them out and getting rid of all of the terra firma and restoring it to the imperial rule. And so Venice is therefore led to the one person that they can help defend them against the aggression of the Pope and the Emperor. And who else can they turn to but King Louis XII of France, who they had been fighting against the entire time. So, a treaty at Blois is signed between the Venetians and the French, pledging to divide all of northern Italy between the French and the Republic of Venice. So Venice basically swaps sides and joins on the side of the French. And this was in, I forgot to mention this, in 1513. So yes, Venice is... Oh, I typed a number. I typed a 5. Sorry, guys. What's with Venice and switching sides? Everyone was doing it. Everyone was doing it, Yoshi. So yes, Venice swaps sides, and the newly reinstated Duchy of Milan joins the war effort against the French and now Venetians, despite the Venetians helping reinstate the Milanese and siding with the Milanese, like that the Milanese Sforza should be back on in control of Milan. Despite that, they also side against the Venetians. Yeah, it's not really Venice switching side as opposed to their entire alliance throwing them under the bus again. Well, not again, but yeah. It's like the Simpsons Bush meme. Yeah, kinda. So, moving on to the next bit. France is on the ropes. Unless. So this is just like a series of fortunate events for Louis XII. Despite gaining the alliance of Venice, the war was still looking very treacherous for the French. They had been forced out of Italy. They were now having to defend themselves in the north of Italy from both attacks from both the French, not French, they are the French, from the English and the Holy Roman Empire. They have to deal with conflict from the Swiss incursions into their territory. They have to deal with incursions in the south from the Spanish. And thank you for the lecture. You're welcome. I hope you're enjoying it. If you need to head off, that's I understand. We are near the end, technically. So yes, they lose the Battle of Novara against the Swiss, despite having superior numbers, so that's not good. And then yes, the English armies continue to besiege and capture the cities in the north of France. And then also the English start an offensive in Guyane, which is, I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of that. I believe that is in southern France or western France. Let me just double check. Yeah, okay, so it's like southern France on the west coast. And it's like a strip of land there. So yes, France is now fighting the English and the Germans in the north, and the Spanish and the English in the south, and also trying to invade Italy at the same time and losing to the Swiss. Because pike and shot is very strong, guys. Southwest is old Aquitaine, yes. Okay. I've lost my PowerPoint. There we go. Okay. So it's also not looking good for Venice either. Their army is forced to retreat into the Veneto again after the loss at the Battle of La Motta, which I believe was against not Ferrara, because they're on the side of Ferrara. It's against the Pope and I think the Spanish. I think. So yes, things aren't looking good for France. It gets even worse because Louis XII dies on the start of the year of 1515, and Francis I takes the throne. And as part of his ascension to the throne, he assumes the title of Duke of Milan and moves immediately to reclaim his land back in Italy. So despite being invaded by both England, Spain, and the Holy Roman Empire, his main move of this conflict is to invade into Italy again. So we find ourselves in the final battle. Very ballsy, yes. So we find ourselves in the final battle, which is the Battle of Marignano, which I've probably mispronounced because it's Italian, I guess. So Francis I leads the forces of his army against the Swiss and Milanese combined forces and absolutely demolishes them. It is... it's very one-sided. And so the Swiss army is just completely outclassed, which is very strange for the Swiss because they're supposed to be the elite fighting force of Europe, and so for them to be just utterly outclassed by the French with the assistance of the Venetians is very shocking. And so yes, the battle is exceptionally decisive. The Milanese is once again overthrown, and so France recaptures Milan, removes the Sforza from the Duchy of Milan, and France is now control of the duchy again. Pope Leo X, who has taken over from at this point who's taken over Julius II, who has died, is deserted by his Swiss mercenary army and eventually meets Francis I at Bologna. And so this is essentially the Pope giving up. Wasn't this the one where the French had a lot of Landsknecht? Yes, it is. This is a very interesting battle. So I believe these are the Landsknechts down here. Maybe? Or maybe no, this would be the French, right? This would be the French. And so maybe this is the Landsknechts over here. It's very hard to interpret this artwork. There's a lot going on. And you can see all the cannons there. So I believe... I forget which battle it was, but during this war is when cannons are heavily featured in field battles and become exceptionally instrumental in winning battles. And so you see the rise of pike and shot and the decline of just pure pike formations, essentially. You'd be very concerned as infantry, yes. Oh, you mean because it's right in front of their line? Yeah, well, the pikes are basically defending the cannons. They started realizing that, hey, a cannon does good work on people too. Yeah, kinda, yeah. Okay, so back to the diplomatic situation. Essentially, Pope Leo, deserted by his army of mercenaries, surrenders. So he forfeits the lands of Parma and Piacenzo, to the French, and surrenders Modena to the Duke of Ferrara. So it's pretty poor showing from Pope Leo the 10th. But in return for surrendering this territory, ever the opportunist, Pope Leo receives guarantees of French non-interference in his proposed attack on the Duke of Urbino, because at this point, I believe, displeased with the state of the Papal State and the ongoing war of Italian wars, the Duke of Urbino and other powers in the north of the Papal States actually declare quasi-independence. And so the Pope is like, I need to put them back in their place. And so he's going to attack them. And so he agrees to the peace deal with Charles, and at the cost of ensuring that he can attack the Duke of Urbino without the French getting involved. Oh, shoot. So yes, the Treaty of Noyon is signed between King Francis and the newly crowned Charles V of France, of Spain rather. So what's his face? Ferdinand II dies. His son Charles V, I believe, takes to the throne. I believe he was Charles I of Spain, but he's Charles V of the Habsburg family. Yes, so he's the first Habsburg ruler of Spain. And so Spain and France essentially peace out and say, okay, we recognize the French claim to Milan, and you will recognize the Spanish claim to Naples, and that removes Spain from the war. Did he have the jaw? I don't think so. I don't think so. Technically, oh yes, technically Ferdinand's daughter became Queen of Spain, but yeah, she was insane, so Charles rules for her. Yeah. What's her name? Joanna the Mad, I think. Yes. It was Joanna the Mad, and Charles rules on her behalf because she's, woo, insane woman. Yeah, okay. I did my historical research, guys. So yes, Maximilian, in his infinite wisdom... I'm actually in the way of the slide, aren't I? Okay, let's move out the way a little bit. My hair is too poofy and fluffy. Maximilian, good old Maximilian, Holy Roman Emperor. He's attacked Italy 3 times, I think, or twice now, and both times it's gone horribly wrong, so what does he do? He does it one more time, trying to invade Lombardy. But he runs out of money again before he gets to Milan, and he can't pay his troops. So his army just turns around and goes home. Which is just like, at that point, Maximilian, what are you up to? And so yes, the eventual peace deal is between Francis and the Italians is confirmed, and basically all of the territory that the Venetians had lost in the Terra Firma is returned to them. And so we end up with the war starting with France controlling Milan, Spain controlling Naples, Venice controlling the Terra Firma, and the Papal States controlling the Papal States. And we end up in the exact same situation of France controlling France, the Spanish controlling Naples, the Papal States controlling the Papal States, and Venice in control of the Terra Firma. And so yes, after 8 years of fighting, 8 long years of fighting, diplomatic fuckery, backstabbing, throwing Venice under the bus, throwing France under the bus, it ends with barely any territorial changes at all. And so yeah, the war ends, and basically nothing happened, except a lot of people died. So this is artwork from the final battle. I believe this is Charles I leading his troops into battle. And so yeah, guys, those darn warlike Europeans, yet no one wins, essentially. And so yeah, guys, that's it, guys. Hopefully this helped explain the War of the League of Cambrai and why it was such a clusterfuck. So yeah, in conclusion, guys, the War of the League of Cambrai was only a small part of a larger conflict known as the Italian Wars. Despite no major territorial changes occurring, the conflict had immense impact on the geopolitical structure of Europe, with the advent of the Spanish Habsburg dynasty rising to power. Yes, which I mentioned in the next point. It's an interesting case study of modern diplomacy and warfare, with constant flip-flopping of allegiances, and the rise of guns and cannons playing a major part in the battlefield. We also see the importance of mercenary armies being used by all sides of the conflict to supplement their standing armies. And so you see the rise of, you see the decline of the traditional knights in military, and the rise of, what was it? Aquabuses, water buses. I've forgotten how it's pronounced. Aquibus. Arquebus. I don't know how to pronounce it. Arquebussy. Arquebussy. The arquebussy is very important in this conflict. The water cars, yes. And so yes, you see the decline of the knights and cavalry, I believe, and the rise of foot soldiers using cannons in warfare, essentially. I know I didn't touch on it too much because I feel like this presentation, which is already almost 3 hours long, if I went into the details of every single battle, this presentation would be another 2 hours. And I did want to try and keep it a little more concise than the Fourth Crusade one, because it is technically it's a longer time period, but it is a more concise conflict, but requires explanation of the backstory, which is the heavy part of the presentation. So hopefully it helped, guys. Hopefully it was a fun explanation of the War of the League in Cambrai. And if you guys have any questions, now would be a good time to ask them, and I'll try to answer them. That said, like I mentioned at the start, it's a very complex. It's quite complex. There's a lot of diplomatic maneuvering. Yes, you can go brush your teeth. Thank you. Will this be on the final exam? Maybe. Maybe I could do an exam, guys. Was Louis XII the other name we had to remember? Yes. So Louis XII was Louis d'Orléans, and he became the French king. Has eyeing the French ever led to anything good? I don't know. Can you explain how magnets work? No. How did this war affect the overall power of the papacy? So the papal state and the Pope itself, despite not achieving much territorial gain, their diplomatic and political power did increase dramatically during this size, as you can see by the papal state basically wrangling the Holy Roman Empire, the French, the Spanish, and who knows what else into these hodgepodge alliances and leagues against various different powers that threatened the papal state. You can see that the Pope is able to utilize these massive powers for their own personal gain. And it showed the importance of the Pope in medieval politics. How will this affect LeBron's legacy? I don't know. Will there be a term paper? Hopefully not. I don't want to have to mark term papers from chat. That's too many term papers. Or rather essays, because we just call them essays here. They didn't get ecclesiastical investiture in the HRA, did they? I don't think so. Pope Julius II was also a big, and also Pope Leo X were big advocates for indulgences, and which also didn't help with the papal state. The papal state's reputation and the reputation of Christianity. Over 100 more essays for me to mark? Please no, guys. Please don't. But yeah, if you guys have any more questions, feel free to ask them. Otherwise, I guess we might be done today, guys. I think we might be done. I think we might be done, guys. When you say pike and shot, does that refer to the cannon or to the infantry weapons? Infantry weapons. So yeah. Did Scotland lose anything besides the king? They lost a lot of their nobility as well in the battle. And they also just got kind of humiliated by the English. But yeah, I guess. Oh, guys, I forgot from my schedule that it's Valentine's Day. Do you guys want Valentine's Day stream to be tomorrow? Because that's the 14th for me. Or do you want it to be on the 15th for the Yanks? Well, 15th for me, but the 14th for the Yanks. Do you guys want it tomorrow or the day after, basically? Tomorrow or Wednesday? Whatever works? Okay, well, I'll see what we can do. You got plans on Yankee V-Day? Wow, brag about it. Cleo, you be my Valentine. I'll do something. I guess we can decide with a poll. Should be on your Valentine's. Okay. I'm sorry, guys. I actually have plans tomorrow with my 200 girlfriends and husbands. You don't know them. They go to another streaming service. I'm joking, of course. I'm very alone. You're giving chocolates to 3 different girls on Tuesday. Oh, good luck. Anyway, I guess that's it, guys. Thank you so much for coming, guys. I hope you enjoyed this history lecture. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream, and I hope you have a wonderful end of your weekend.